各位啊，旁的不争不贪不求不自私不自利，不打妄语，什么时候都是快乐的。
He cultivated ascetic practices his entire life. The contemporary high monk, Venerable Hsuan Hua, who always spoke the truth, entered Nirvana on June 7th, 1995. The Master's disciples from 27 branch facilities in various parts of the United States, Canada, and Asia honored the Master's instructions, recited the Buddha's name and the Avatamsaka Sutra. A vast number of the Master's lay disciples set aside their busy jobs and professions to go to the Master's various way places to single-mindedly join in the Dharma assemblies for reciting the Buddha's name and the Avatamsaka Sutra. When the Master was in the world, he was always instructing and guiding his disciples to make the best use of their time and work hard at cultivation. That's because every instant, every moment holds the potential for becoming enlightened. Even the Master's manifesting nirvana was a reminder to his disciples that they should vigorously sit in meditation, be mindful of the Buddha, and diligently recite the sutras. Looking back on the Master's life, it was his strict upholding of the precepts that earned the respect of people all over the world. Beyond that, the Master's advocating of taking one meal a day at noon and not lying down at night attracted quite a number of Asian and Westerners who had a strong resolve to cultivate. They put aside worldly renown and riches to gather at the Master's feet and practice asceticism. How many words of wisdom the Master uttered during his life? Every sentence caused people to stop and reflect. A few examples are: truly recognize your own faults. Don't discuss the faults of others. Their faults are just my own. To be the same in substance with everyone is known as great compassion. Everything is a test to see what you will do. If you don't recognize what's right before your eyes, you'll have to start anew. To undergo suffering is to end suffering. To enjoy your blessing is to use up your blessings. The Master's homeland is in Manchuria, China, on the banks of the Black Dragon River at the foot of the eternally white mountains. At that time it was the province of Jilin Auspicious Forest in Shangcheng, Twin Cities County. It was bitterly cold there in the winters, which helped develop the Master's character, the strong heroic qualities of never fearing difficulty and extraordinary patience and self-possession. The Master's mother, the wife of Bai Fu Hai, whose maiden name was Hu, was a vegetarian all her life and recited the Buddha's name. On the night when the Master was born, she dreamed that Amitabha Buddha appeared. Shortly after she awoke from that dream, the Master was born. When the Master was 11, he witnessed the death of a neighbor's child and resolved to seek the way. He also began to repent of all of his own mistakes. Every day in the courtyard, he would bow to heaven, earth, the leaders of nations, his parents and teachers, as well as all sages, saints, loyal and filial people, those who had done a great deal of good and those who had done great evil, with the hope that the good would receive wholesome rewards and the evil would change and reform. In this way, he made over 800 prostrations, which took over 5 hours daily despite the snowstorm. That was the cause that led to him having throngs of disciples all over the world. On occasion, the Master also bowed to his own disciples, the ones who wouldn't follow the rules or who were lazy and lax, with the hope that these disciples would change their faults, renew themselves, and go forward with diligence and vigor. The Master often told his disciples, "You bow to me today because in the past I have made countless prostrations to you."
When the Master was 15 years old, he took refuge with the elder Chang, the Reverend Zhi of Sanyuan Three Conditions Monastery in Manchuria. During his 18th year, his mother passed away. At that time, the Master officially had his head shaved and left home under Elder Master Chang Zhi, receiving the Dharma names An Ci and Du Lun, and then returned to his mother's graveside, where he erected a small hut and practiced filial piety beside the grave for 3 years. Those 3 years at the graveside, cultivating Chan meditation, enabled the Master to develop a solid foundation for his skill in cultivation. At the same time, the Master made 18 great vows to save all living beings and bring them to realization of Buddhahood. The first great vow: I vow that as long as there is a single bodhisattva in the 3 periods of time throughout the 10 directions of the Dharma realm, to the very end of empty space, who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 2, I vow that as long as there is a single Pratyeka Buddha in the 3 periods of time, throughout the 10 directions of the Dharma realm, to the very end of empty space, who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 3, I vow that as long as there is a single Shravaka in the 3 periods of time, throughout the 10 directions of the Dharma realm, to the very end of empty space, who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 4, I vow that as long as there is a single God in the triple realm who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 5, I vow that as long as there is a single human being in the worlds of the 10 directions who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 6, I vow that as long as there is a single Ashura who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 7, I vow that as long as there is a single animal who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 8, I vow that as long as there is a single hungry ghost who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 9, I vow that as long as there is a single hell dweller who has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 10, I vow that as long as there is a single God, immortal, human, Ashura, air-bound or water-bound creature, animate or inanimate object, or a single dragon, beast, ghost, spirit, or the like, of the spiritual realm that has taken refuge with me and has not accomplished Buddhahood, I too will not attain the right enlightenment. Number 11, I vow to fully dedicate all blessings and bliss which I myself ought to receive and enjoy to all living beings of the Dharma realm. Number 12, I vow to fully take upon myself all sufferings and hardships of all living beings in the Dharma realm. Number 13, I vow to manifest innumerable bodies as a means to gain access into the minds of living beings throughout the universe who do not believe in the Buddha Dharma, causing them to correct their faults and tend towards wholesomeness, repent of their errors and start anew, take refuge in the Triple Jewel, and ultimately accomplish Buddhahood. Number 14, I vow that all beings who see my face or hear my name will fix their thoughts on Bodhi and quickly accomplish the Buddha way. Number 15, I vow to respectfully observe the Buddha's instructions and cultivate the practice of eating only 1 meal per day. Number 16, I vow to enlighten all sentient beings universally, responding to the multitude of differing potentials. Number 17, I vow to obtain the 5 eyes, 6 spiritual powers, and the freedom of being able to fly in this very life. Number 18, I vow that all my vows will certainly be fulfilled. In conclusion, I vow to save innumerable living beings. I vow to eradicate inexhaustible afflictions. I vow to learn numberless Dharma doors. I vow to accomplish the unsurpassed Buddha way. During his period by the grave, once in his meditation, the Master saw the great Master Huineng, the 6th patriarch of the Chan school, come into his hut and speak to him, saying, "In the future, you will go to America. The 5 schools will divide into 10 schools. You will meet infinitely many people and will take beings across in number like the Ganges sands. This will be the true beginning of Buddhism in the West." When his period of filial piety was complete, the Master left Manchuria and gradually moved south until he reached Nanhua Monastery in Canton Province, where he studied under the exalted and noble Elder Master Xu Yun. Elder Master Yun knew that the Master was a vessel for the Dharma. Not only did he invite the Master to be the Dean of Academic Affairs of the Nanhua Vinaya Academy, later he also named the Master recipient of the 9th generation Weiyang Chan School lineage. At that time, the Master's Dharma name was still Venerable Ansi. Elder Master Yun especially gave the Master another Dharma name for perpetuating the Weiyang lineage, Hsuan Hua, and an ordained name, Du Lun. Master Yun also wrote a verse in expression of faith for the Master. Proclaiming Wei's wonderful meaning will cause the sect's reputation to be echoed far and wide. The transformations inherited from Magic Mountain will exalt the Dharma's way. Taking across to the 46th will transmit the mind's seal. The wheel, which revolves unceasingly, will rescue the suffering hordes. In 1949, the Master bowed goodbye to Elder Master Yun and went to Hong Kong to propagate the Dharma. During his stay in Hong Kong, the Master renovated the ancient temple Nation's Purity Chan Hall, Guoqing Si, established Flourishing Compassion Chan Monastery, Cixing Chan Si, Western Bliss Gardens Temple, Shilo Yan Si, and the Buddhist Lecture Hall, Fojiao Jiangtang. He also aided the Elder Master Xu Yun in the renovation of True Suchness Monastery, Zhenru Si, on Yunju Mountain. In Hong Kong, the Master lectured sutras and spoke the Dharma, printed sutras and sponsored Buddha images, and propagated Chan meditation, the teachings, the Vinaya, the esoteric, and the Pure Land schools, to break through the divisiveness of sects and schools. He caused many people to become interested in and to believe in Buddhism.
In 1962, conditions were ripe, and the Master, responding to the invitation of disciples, arrived in faraway America, and just as the sixth patriarch had predicted during the Master's meditation, took the Buddha's teaching to the West. However, propagating the proper Dharma is an immense and extremely tough task. When the Master first arrived in America, he lived in San Francisco in a windowless basement flat. During that 6-year period, the Master called himself the monk in the grave. He considered himself to be a living dead person. No matter how hard things got, the Master never went out to ask for anything from others. That spirit of doing what is hard to do and bearing what is hard to bear is truly one of the most valuable aspects of the teaching of the Master that he's given to his disciples. To this very day, at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, before morning and evening recitation begin, everyone recites aloud together the Master's verse. Freezing, we do not scheme. Starving, we do not beg. Dying of poverty, we ask for nothing. We accord with conditions, but do not change. We do not change and yet accord with conditions. These are our three great principles. We renounce our lives to do the Buddha's work. We shape our lives to create the ability to make revolution in the Sangha order. In our actions, we understand the principles so that our principles are revealed in our actions. We carry out the pulse of the Patriarch's mind-to-mind seal. After reciting that verse, everyone follows the Master's instructions to reflect upon themselves. I ask myself, do I fight? I ask myself, am I greedy? I ask myself, do I seek? I ask myself, am I selfish? I ask myself, do I pursue self-benefits? I ask myself, do I lie? I ask myself, do I eat one meal a day? Do I always wear my precept sash? These are the City of 10,000 Buddhist traditions, and absolutely no one can change them. In 1968, on Chinese New Year's Day, the Master predicted, this year in America, a 5-petaled lotus flower will blossom within Buddhism. Sure enough, during that year, over 30 students from the University of Washington in Seattle came to listen to the Master explain the Shurangama Sutra. After the Master's lecture on the Shurangama Sutra were finished, 5 of the Master's American disciples left the home life, and in 1969 went to Keelung, Taiwan to receive the complete precepts. These were the first American bhikshus and bhikshunis. The person involved in introducing the University of Washington students to come and study the Buddha Dharma with the Master that year is the Master's American disciple, Dr. Ronald Epstein, who is currently professor in the philosophy department at San Francisco State University. He often tells us the kind of difficulties that the Master faced during those early years of teaching his Western disciples. Besides Americans, the Master also has Western disciples from various European countries. This has enabled the Master to come a step closer to his resolve to translate the Buddhist sutras into the languages of the world. The Master often says, the Buddha's teaching is perfect and ultimate. What a shame that the Buddhist canon, the Tripitaka with its 12 divisions, has yet to be translated into the languages of the world. This is all that's preventing Buddhism from spreading to every corner of the world. To further this cause, the Master established the Buddhist Text Translation Society in 1970 and also founded the International Institute for the Translation of Buddhist Texts in 1971. Currently, the institute, renamed the International Translation Institute, is located in a large facility in Burlingame near the San Francisco International Airport. Over the years, more than 200 English translations of the sutras have been published, most with commentary by the Venerable Master Hua. There are also Buddhist publications in Spanish, Vietnamese, Japanese, French, and Indonesian translations are in progress. In 1970, the Master also began a monthly journal of Orthodox Buddhism, Vajra Bodhisi. In the beginning, it was an English publication. Currently, it is entirely bilingual. Besides the translation of Buddhist texts, other lifelong goals of the Master have been to establish schools and foster education, and to found Buddhist facilities for the teaching and transforming of beings. Before the Master left the home life, he established a free school for students of low-income families. The Master often says education is the nation's best defense. The best way to increase the strength of a country is not in developing advanced weapons technology, but in providing a foundation of excellent education. Based on this belief, after the Master came to America, he founded Instilling Goodness Elementary School, Developing Virtue Secondary School. The Master once said, no matter what the country we live in, we want to help that country's peace and prosperity. For this reason, the Master instructed that the 8 virtues of filiality, fraternity, loyalty, trustworthiness, propriety, righteousness, incorruptibility, and a sense of shame be taught to the students. The curriculum, besides including all courses required by the Department of Education, also includes the 3 character classics, standard for students, the 1,000 character classics, the 100 family names, and so forth. Bilingual teaching methods are used to help students understand and assimilate the principles of ethics and moral virtue explained in these classics. The Elder Master worked hard with the hope that the young students would develop into talented and moral individuals who could perhaps alleviate the suffering of living beings.
Once the Master gave a talk on education at Stanford University. Now, as for education, we need to ask, fundamentally, what is education? To sum it all up, to be an educated person means simply not turning our back on our basic conscience and wisdom. Instead, recognizing our own conscience and wisdom. If one fails to recognize the function of our conscience and our wisdom, then we can use these 2 capacities wrong. However, if we do recognize the scope and the power of our conscience and our wisdom, then we know what we should do in life as people. Exactly what are we here to do as people? What am I here for? What are you here for? Is our purpose here on earth to fight for name and for profit? Are we here to contend with each other to be number one? No, those are not the goals of human life. The number one reason to come here as a person is to establish our character, to learn to be unselfish, straightforward, and honest people. You could say that our job is to represent heaven and earth here among people. That is our fundamental goal. If we can be a good representative for God, for the Buddhas, for the Bodhisattvas, then we should be the very best representative we can be. They gave us our conscience. They gave us our capacity for wisdom. If, with those gifts, we fail to go forward in life and instead retreat to harm ourselves, to harm society, to harm the world, to bring harm to all living beings, then we have simply forgotten our inherent conscience and our fundamental wisdom. Our life will be passed in seeking outside, forgetting the roots, pursuing the branch tips. This will be to turn our back on our inherent humaneness, righteousness, propriety, and wisdom. We will forget what we are here to do. We will lose it completely, and that would be very sad indeed.
The Master also was intent on developing talent within the Buddhist community. In 1976, at the city of 10,000 Buddhas, he founded the Dharma Realm Buddhist University, which offers degrees recognized by the state of California. Currently, programs in Buddhist study and practice, translation of Buddhist texts, Buddhist education, and Chinese language and literature are offered. In addition, the Sangha and laity training programs offer a full set of courses of training for both left-home and lay Buddhists, with focuses on the study of precepts. In the area of founding way places, the Master first established Gold Mountain Monastery in San Francisco. Then in 1974, he managed to purchase the city of 10,000 Buddhas, a 448-acre complex, which became the first large monastery in Northern California. Following that, the Master founded Gold Wheel Monastery in Los Angeles, Gold Summit Monastery in Seattle, Gold Buddha Monastery in Vancouver, British Columbia, Avatamsaka Monastery in Calgary, Alberta, Avatamsaka Hermitage in Maryland, the International Translation Institute and headquarters of Dharma Realm Buddhist Association in Burlingame, California, City of Dharma Realm, Sacramento, California, Long Beach Sagely Monastery and Blessing, Prosperity, and Longevity Monastery in Long Beach, World Religions Institute in Berkeley, Gold Sage Monastery in San Jose, and so forth. Besides these, there are several monasteries in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Each way place provides opportunities for local people to hear the proper Dharma so that they can plant seeds of Bodhi and nurture their growth. No matter where the Master went, he blessed and aided the people and transferred all rewards of blessings and merit and virtue to everyone. In the fall of 1962, when the Master first arrived in America, the Cuban Missile Crisis was imminent, and the Master fasted for 5 weeks, transferring the merit and virtue to the security of the nation. San Francisco was the first city the Master lived in upon his arrival to the United States. In 1968, there were many predictions that a major earthquake would occur. The Master vowed that as long as he was in San Francisco, he would not allow a major earthquake that would bring any harm to occur in San Francisco. And that is the way it was. As long as the Master was in San Francisco, no major earthquake occurred. The 1989 major earthquake that happened in San Francisco Bay Area was while the Master was in Taiwan leading a Dharma assembly. Because of that quake, which caused serious harm and property damage, the Master especially returned to San Francisco to settle things down before returning to Taiwan to continue the Dharma assembly. In 1990, responding to the invitation of the faithful, the Master led a delegation to host the 150th birthday of the late Venerable Master Hsuan. In addition, he hosted the Dharma Assembly for the nationwide mindfulness of the Buddha to pray for the blessings and eradicate disasters, which was attended by 70,000 people. When that massive group began to recite Manchuria Bodhisattva Universal Door Chapter, a change suddenly occurred in the sky, and a sheath of light radiated through space, girthing the blue expanse. The sky, suddenly cloudless, was filled with brilliant light that lasted about 10 minutes. That was truly a case of 10,000 people recite the Buddha's name and the Buddha's light shines on everything. The Master pointed out that a Dharma assembly attended by such a large gathering was virtually unknown to the United States. If a nation's people could often gather in such mass to recite the Buddha's name, then the calamities of heaven and earth would certainly diminish. Not only that, the undesirable aspects of society, such as business speculation, gambling, and extortion, would certainly diminish, and the auspicious energies of the nation would certainly increase. During that visit to Taiwan, the Master fasted for 30 days for the purpose of transferring the merit to the people of Taiwan and to alleviating any potential disasters that might be due that nation. As soon as he returned from Taiwan, the Master led another delegation from the Dharma Realm Buddhist University to Europe, propagating the Dharma in England, France, Poland, Italy, and other places. He also gave an address at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. During 1989 and 1990, besides going twice to Taiwan to host large Dharma assemblies and leading the delegation through Europe, the Master spoke at more than 10 universities throughout the United States, including Stanford, University of Cal at Berkeley, UCLA, the University of Washington in Seattle, the University of Maryland, and the University of British Columbia in Canada. The Master investigated Buddhism with these young and promising students, guiding them to understand the true principles of human life and the universe. The Master, already in his 70s, besides traveling through Asia, America, and Europe to spread the Dharma and benefit beings, also had to oversee the numerous way places he had founded. Unknown to many people, the Master during the last 5 or 6 years had been suffering many illnesses brought about by extreme fatigue and overexertion. Despite sickness and suffering, he continued to turn the great Dharma wheel. The Master continued as usual in spite of his sickness, unconcerned about birth and death. There was never a time when he was not speaking Dharma. The Master said, "I am like two people. While you see this body before you, I continue to work outside to save people. I pay no attention to my own problem." And so the sickness and pain did not slow the Master's pace in propagating the Buddha Dharma and benefiting beings. During his illness, the Master continued his active and far-reaching life in his plan to translate the Buddha Sutras and increase the efforts in uniting the Southern and Northern traditions, frequently meeting and communicating with Dharma masters of the Southern tradition. Although the city of 10,000 Buddhists is a Northern tradition and great vehicle Buddhism, it enjoys an ongoing relationship with those of the Southern tradition. The Master offered an area of the city of 10,000 Buddhists for the Southern tradition to use for their meditation sessions. The Master felt that whether the tradition was Southern or Northern, the goal was to help beings bring forth the Bodhi mind, to end birth and death, to leave suffering and attain bliss. And so he wanted the North and the South to work together, to meet in the middle where there is no more strife and conflict. The Master strongly advocated a system of volunteer teaching. Currently at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, there are over 20 volunteer faculty members representing many professions and areas of study who serve instilling goodness and developing virtue schools. The Master said, "Those who don't take a salary are truly dedicated. This group of volunteer staff who receive housing and basic necessities from the city of 10,000 Buddhas serves as a model for students by truly living the principles of no contention, no greed, no seeking, and not being defiled by money.
Observing the many social problems that result from society's lack of family harmony and lack of respect for elders, the Master, despite his illness, put great energy into establishing the customs of venerating the elderly and cherishing youth, hoping to revive the ancients' attitude of treating every elderly person as if they were my own elders, and treating all young people as if they were my own children, so that people will work together to bring about a society in which the elderly are secure, friends are trustworthy, and youth are cherished. The Master once wrote a narrative poem in the style of Manjianghong, River Running Red, changing the name to Yu Zhou Bai, White Universe. The contents of this poem are a fine expression of the relentless perseverance the Master exhibited throughout his entire life. Ice in the sky, snow on the ground. Numberless tiny bugs die in the cold or sleep in hibernation. In the midst of stillness you should contemplate, and within movement you should investigate. Dragons spar, tigers wrestle in continual playful sport. Ghosts cry and spirits wail, their illusory transformation strange. Ultimate truth transcends words. Not thought about or talked about, you ought to advance with haste. With great and small destroyed, with no inside or out, it pervades every mode of dust and encompasses the Dharma realm. Complete, whole, and perfectly fused, interpenetrating without obstruction. With two clenched fists, break to pieces the covering of empty space. In one mouthful, swallow the source of the seas of Buddha lands. With great compassion, rescue all, sparing no blood or sweat, and never pause to rest. What strength was it that enabled the Master to spare no blood or sweat and never pause to rest? The Master told his disciples, "There's no difference between you and me at all, except that I have no self." It was exactly his lack of selfishness and ego that enabled the Master to always compare himself to a tiny ant or a frail mosquito. That's what made him want to put himself beneath the feet of all other Buddhist disciples as a road for them to walk upon. The Master often likened himself to a road upon which he hoped all beings would traverse to go from being ordinary people to being Buddhas. In teaching and transforming living beings, the Master made no distinctions. Whether they were mundane and worldly, or were professors with PhDs, whether they were peddlers and servants, or were people with power and prestige, the Master was deeply sincere in treating everyone equally. When the renowned artist Zhang Daqian met the Master wrote a verse on his behalf. "You are foremost in Chinese painting, and you used to be my fellow cultivator. In the past and present, in China and abroad, your name prevails throughout the cosmos. Your popularity is universal, and everyone strives to be the first to see your work, which is like lightning traveling through space, high up to the heavens. Guan Yin manifests the appearance of a great hero. Amitabha would personally praise his elder's countenance. Although playfully roaming in samadhi is delightful, do not forget the purple golden lotus in the west." People said that Zhang Daqian was extremely moved by the verse and lamented that he had fallen. Catholic Cardinal Paul Yubin led a delegation that visited the city of 10,000 Buddhas in 1977. The Master suggested that the Cardinal be a Buddhist among the Catholics, and that the Master himself would be a Catholic among the Buddhists, and in this way put an end to religious war. The Master invited the Cardinal to head the World Religion Center he planned to establish at the city. Unfortunately, the Cardinal died unexpectedly in the Vatican in Rome. The establishment of the World Religion Center was postponed until 1994, when it came into being in Berkeley. On March 14, 1979, in a chat with the supervisor of San Francisco, the master predicted that communism would end in a decade. That prediction came true. In 1988, during the then Vice President George Bush's first presidential campaign, the master was invited to speak in San Francisco's Chinatown. At that time, the master urged Vice President Bush to be a president who did not fight, was not greedy, did not seek, was not selfish, pursued no self-benefit, and did not lie. President Bush, upon election, heeded that advice and invited the Venerable Abbot to the White House. In 1992, during President Bush's re-election campaign, the Honorable Edwin Derwinski, representing President Bush, paid a visit to the master. During the press conference, the master suggested that if the president did not take a salary, thus setting an example as a leader to the American people, the master would guarantee he could be re-elected. Unfortunately, President Bush did not follow the master's advice at the time. In 1990, responding to the invitation of San Francisco Police Chief and future Mayor Frank Jordan, the master accepted the position as chaplain of the San Francisco Police Department. During the same year, Police Chief Jordan paid a visit to the city of 10,000 Buddhas and attended a Dharma assembly. Bud Harrison, the former mayor of Burlingame, California, which is near the San Francisco International Airport, had an audience with the master. Mayor Harrison, who agreed with the master's view that education is a nation's best defense, revisited the master on several occasions. In January of 1993, responding to invitations by the Taiwan faithful, the master returned to Taiwan to host a Shurangama and Great Compassion Dharma assembly that included transmission of the 3 refuges and 5 precepts. During that visit, the director of the Judicial Yuan, Lin Yanggang, especially went to pay his respects to the master. The master made his point clear. Taiwan's current situation was as precarious as a pile of eggs, similar to Ling'an in the southern Song dynasty. The master urged Taiwanese officials to stop their internal power struggles, for it could only put Taiwan's future in grave danger. These comments caused a huge reaction in Taiwan. Subsequent to that, government advisor Liang Surong, former director of the Legislative Yuan, Huang Zunqiu, current director of the Legislative Yuan, and Hao Bo-chun, then director of the Legislative Yuan, all came, one after the other, to ask for advice. The master repeatedly urged them to make government affairs their foremost concern, and the peace and prosperity of the people their primary task. In January of 1994, the second annual celebration for the venerating of the elderly was held, and Chen Lifu, advisor to the President of Taiwan and former Minister of Education, joined the festivities and expressed his deep appreciation of the energy and the methods the master used in spreading Chinese culture in America.
I vow to take upon myself the miseries of all living beings of the Dharma realm, that I alone might endure them on their behalf. I vow to bestow upon all living beings of the Dharma realm all the blessings and happiness I might be destined to receive. The Master's public-spirited and was unselfish throughout his entire life. Now, although the Master has physically left us, his stern but kind-hearted advice still rings in our ears. The Master's spirit of forgetting himself for the sake of Dharma remains an enduring model for us to emulate.
On the morning of June 17th, 1995, faithful followers from all parts of the world knelt along both sides of the road that passes through the mountain gate at the city of 10,000 Buddhas, restraining their grief as they recited the Buddha's name to reverently greet the Master on his return to the city. Mingled in the uninterrupted chanting of the Buddha's name were sounds of weeping. The Master in his coffin was first escorted to the hall of 10,000 Buddhas and then brought back to his abbot's quarters in the wordless hall by his disciples. Honoring the Master's final instructions, the 4 assemblies of disciples conducted both an assembly for reciting the Flower Adornment Sutra and an assembly for reciting the Buddha's name. The recitation of the Flower Adornment Sutra was divided into 3 halls each day, with chanting done in Chinese, English, and Vietnamese. In the Wordless Hall, a 24-hour Buddha recitation session was conducted. Disciples sincerely recited the Buddha's name and circumambulated. On July 28, 1995, at 8:30 in the morning, the memorial service for the Master began. The Venerable Master Mingyang, Vice Chairman of the Buddhist Association of China, representing the association, and Zhao Buchu, Chairman of the association, spoke first. Elder Master Hsuan Hua, whose virtue was lofty and whose way was revered, toiled to establish the sagely city of 10,000 Buddhas and to propagate the Dharma and benefit beings. He showed a fond regard for all nations, and he venerated the teachings of Buddhism, putting them into practice throughout his entire life. We pray that after the Master abides briefly in the land of ultimate bliss, he will soon return here and, based on his vows, rescue the multitudes. Dharma Master Xu Lang of the Wonderful Dharma Hermitage in Los Angeles spoke next, saying, "The Venerable Master came to America to establish way places. He then proceeded to establish over 20 monasteries. For a Chinese person to do this must have been extremely difficult undertaking." The Most Venerable Bhante Dhammawara, who was born in 1888, slowly and succinctly uttered these words. "Venerable Master Hsuan Hua has entered nirvana. A big star has fallen. The fall of the big star makes room for another star." The senior precepted monk among Westerners, Venerable Ajahn Sumedho, who cultivated for many years in Thailand and who has founded many way places in England, then pointed out,
A great master who inspired us all and gave us so much during his lifetime. It's a great gift from the Asian continent to the Western world, to North America, to Europe. These venerable sages that choose to live and share their wisdom with us in the Western world. And I think this kind of gift and great compassion is something.
Now we ask Dr. John Zhu to represent and read the statements by former President Bush and by California Governor Pete Wilson.
At this time, when Dharma Master Hsuan Hua has left us, has entered Nirvana, President George Bush felt very sorry and has extended the following condolence. Upon the passing of the Most Venerable Dharma Master Hsuan Hua, I would like to express my sincere condolences to all his Buddhist followers. The holy man was an inspiration to all who knew him, to all who followed his teachings. His good works, his helping others, made him a true point of light. He was a truly compassionate man, and he will be sorely missed. Respectfully submitted, George Bush.
After reading the letter of condolence from the former President George Bush, Professor Zhu Bingmian read a letter from Pete Wilson, governor of the state of California.
Office of the Governor, State of California, to Dharma Rome Buddhist Association America. I'm sorry to know that the most venerable Dharma Master Hsuan Hua has left this world, but given his profound spiritual life, is now enjoying a greater and more permanent happiness. He did many wonderful things in this world. He opened his city of 10,000 Buddhas for refugees from Southeast Asia. He gave flood relief and awarded scholarships to needy students. He established an elementary and secondary school as well as a university. He established the Institute of International Translation, which he translated more than 100 Buddhist texts and sutras into English and other languages, and has become the largest translation center of the Buddhist literature in the world. People will forever remember his noble teaching on moral principles, and the world will show everlasting respect for his spiritual life. I'm sure that the 27 Buddhist monasteries and temples and spiritual centers established by him, and the millions of disciples and followers of this great holy man will continue his spiritual work for the benefit of all mankind. I extend my deep sympathy and join you in prayers for the great holy man. Respectively, yours, Pete Wilson.
Telegrams arrived from the advisor to the President of Taiwan, Lin Yanggang, and General Secretary to the President of Taiwan, Hao Bo-chun. The letters were read by Deputy Director Fu Di of the San Francisco branch of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office. Chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Mendocino County, Frank McMichael, often attended events at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. On that day, he arrived early to attend the Master's memorial service and especially express his respect for the Venerable Abbot.
Where I was born, China was considered to be the other side of the world.
American left-home disciple of the Master, Heng Shi, represented the Venerable Abbot's 4 assemblies of disciples in receiving all the honored guests. That completed the solemn procedures for the memorial service. Following, a grand transmission offering was held during which 108 different items of offerings passed through the hands of each of the more than 2,000 faithful followers. This was the final opportunity for disciples to pay their respects by presenting offerings before the cremation ceremony commenced. The cremation ceremony began at 3 in the afternoon on July 28, 1995. The Master's casket was moved to the cremation site with over 2,000 people following behind. Many of those following behind were disciples who had taken refuge with the Venerable Abbot. The Master rejected no one who made application to leave the home life. He set up tough criteria for leaving home when he first began propagating the Dharma in the West. Applicants needed a college degree. They had to memorize the Shurangama mantra before leaving home and study the Shurangama Sutra after. They had to be able to bear suffering and toil, to sit in Chan meditation, and to learn to lecture on the sutras and to speak the Dharma. But later on, in order to equally gather in all living beings, as long as an applicant had even a tiny portion of good roots, the Master would fulfill their wish to leave the home life. At one point, someone in her 90s wanted to leave the home life. Not only did the Master accept her, he arranged for a full-time companion to care for that elderly left-home person so that she could pass on peacefully. The Master also accepted those whose faculties were imperfect, enabling them to fulfill their pure vows to transcend the mundane world. 6- and 7-year-olds who resolved to leave the home life were readily accepted by the Master so that they could establish their career in cultivation in a pure way place. A year or so before the Master entered Nirvana, he put special effort into nurturing a group of young male and female novices who were newly left home in the Sangha community. Not only did he personally see to the faculty that would teach them, he arranged their curriculum and, despite his acute illness, personally transmitted the Dharma of the 42 hands and eyes to them. Truly, he was not stingy with his strength and energy. Let us hope that this group of young novices, whose ages range from 6 to 17, and who are the Buddha's new Sangha pulse beat, will take the rise or decline of Buddhism as their own personal responsibility. May they take up the task of continuing the work of the Thus Come One, so that they can turn the Dharma ending age into the proper Dharma age. By doing this, they will not disappoint the Venerable Abbot, who taught and transformed them, and who had high aspirations for them. Within Buddhist circles, the Master's way places are famous for being strict about the rules and regulations. The left-home disciples of the Master must always wear their precept sashes. The Master also set the rule that left-home people at his way places must eat only once a day at noon. Exceptions to this rule are made for the elderly, the very young, and those who are ill. Always wearing the precept sash and eating once a day at noon accord with the Buddha's regulations. No matter how people on the outside may find fault with this practice, the Master will never change this tradition. The Master simply says, "This is not my regulation, this is the Buddha's regulation. I'm simply honoring the Buddha's method." The Master also encouraged left-home disciples to never lie down at night and to keep the precept against touching money. The Master himself always sat and never lay down during his early years of cultivation, because that makes it easier to stay alert and vigorous in your cultivation. In order to protect cultivators so they can make progress in the way, the Master encouraged the left-home disciples to uphold the Buddha's regulation about not touching money and not owning personal property. The Master's left-home disciples all work on a volunteer basis, and they get no stipends, nor do they accept personal offerings. The Master also set the precedent that all members of the 4 assemblies, monks and nuns, laymen and laywomen, were to work together, share the responsibilities, and learn alongside each other. Further, distinct divisions were kept between the men and the women in all of the Master's way places. In this way, members of the 4 assemblies can protect and support each other and prevent impure affinities from ever arising. At 4:20 in the afternoon on July 28, 1995, Elder Master Mingyang lit the funeral pyre and spoke the verse for lighting the pyre. Lighting the fire of samadhi to burn the illusory body, not defiled by a single speck of dust, one is pure and naturally at ease. Light the pyre. At that point, the Venerable Master's 4 assemblies of disciples spontaneously knelt to bid their last farewell to the physical form of their spiritual guide. The day after the cremation ceremony, on July 29, 1995, at 8 in the morning, over 1,000 faithful followers gathered in front of the city's 5 Contemplations dining hall, while a huge hot air balloon slowly filled and began to ascend. 2 of the Master's American left-home disciples, Heng Shi and Heng Lai, the abbot of Baoyan Monastery in Costa Rica, Master Zhen Yi, rode in the balloon's basket, bringing the Master's ashes and bones with them. The hot air balloon slowly billowed upward, and the Master's ashes were scattered. Very quickly, the ashes disappeared in the air. It was just as the Master had said, "I came from empty space, and I will return to empty space. In the Master's final instructions, he told his disciples, "After I leave, you can recite the Avatamsaka Sutra and recite the Buddha's name for 7 days or 49 days, however long you like. After the cremation, scatter my ashes in space. I don't want anything else. Remember, don't build any stupas for me or memorial halls. When I came, I had nothing. When I go, I want nothing. I don't want to leave any traces in this world. I came from empty space, and I will return to empty space." In his final instructions, the Master also said, "I can't be with you forever. Everyone has a time when they come and a time when they leave. So don't grieve. Be just as ever. Resolve to work hard. The city of 10,000 Buddhas has its traditions. You should keep the custom of taking 1 meal a day at noon, and the young ones should take 1 meal. The elderly can take 3. It's better if young people eat a little less. Put your emphasis on cultivation. Each of you should cause Buddhism to spread and to flourish. Every action and deed, every word and gesture should be for the sake of Buddhism. Don't fight. Don't be greedy. Seek for nothing. Don't be selfish. Don't pursue self-benefit, and don't lie. In the future, you will certainly become Buddhas. Everyone should take responsibility for the propagation of the Buddha Dharma. As long as you are able to make Buddhism prosper, I will be at peace wherever I am. Teach people for me. Guide and train them well. Develop systems for the schools and administer them well. Do a good job of running the elementary schools. Do a good job of running the secondary schools. And do a good job of running the university. These are essential to educate our promising youth. Don't merely pay attention to your own personal concerns." The Master's final instructions continue. "All my life, I didn't want to fight with anyone else. I didn't want to be greedy, nor to seek, nor to be selfish, nor to pursue personal advantage, nor to lie. That's why I always walked behind everyone. The meaning being that I won't struggle with anyone over fame or profit. If there are advantages to be had and others want them, I give them those benefits. I take for myself what others don't want. I use the 4 attitudes of kindness, compassion, joy, and serenity towards all. I never reject any living being. Although I myself am not a Buddha, I want to learn from the Buddhas." Pervading throughout the Master's final instructions, there is a spirit evident that says, "I will not seek peace and happiness for myself alone. I only want all living beings to leave suffering." And it is just that spirit that causes all the Master's disciples everywhere to pray that he will return, carried by his vows, to continue the work of propagating the Dharma and benefiting beings. The Master left many sharira, or relics, and after arranging them, there were nearly 10,000 individual pieces, more than 1,000 sharira clusters, and 12 sharira teeth. The colors of the sharira included pure white, locust yellow, azure blue, indigo, jet black, and many more. Among them are many sharira that are glazed onto the bones. They are extremely unusual, smooth and gleaming like polished jade. According to a written record from the past, people in India called grains of rice sharira. After Shakyamuni Buddha entered nirvana and was cremated, there were found bone seeds like 5-colored pearls, shiny and hard, similar to the size of grains of rice, and so they took the name sharira. Sharira come from embodying precepts, samadhi, and wisdom, and they are the most supreme field of blessings. For that reason, the Sharira found after the Master's creation are verification of his high level of accomplishment in his cultivation of precepts, samadhi, and wisdom. Throughout his life, the Master strongly advocated holding precepts, cultivating samadhi, and opening wisdom. He lectured on the sutras and spoke the Dharma throughout his entire life in hundreds and thousands of assemblies. No wonder his teeth also became Sharira. One of the Master's disciples sees the Sharira teeth as verification that the Master is one who spoke true and honest words. Although the physical body of the Venerable Master Hsuan Hua, who brought the proper Dharma to the West, has been cremated, the Master's teaching and guiding the Great Assembly to follow the Buddha's instructions, to uphold the traditions of taking the precepts as our teacher, wearing the precept sash, taking one meal a day at noon, and turning the Dharma wheel, will remain forever at the city of 10,000 Buddhas and all the branch way places. Everyone will join together in working hard to ensure the proper Dharma remains in the world.